Hi, my name is Patricia Miller, and this is my screencast for ATM 101 Unit 4. My weather station is located in Kodiak, Alaska, which is an island in the Gulf of Alaska. Here's a closer picture of where my station is at. It's in downtown Kodiak at the base of Pillar Mountain. I took my weather readings the week of January 26th through January 30th, 2014. Each day I did my observations around 5:30 p.m. I think our NWS station is in Anchorage, and we might have an NWS station at our local airport, but I'm not 100% sure. For January 26th, the current temperatures were 40.8 degrees Fahrenheit for the left thermometer and 41.2 degrees Fahrenheit for the right. The cloud coverage was at 100%, and the cloud type was heavy fog with rain as precipitation. The direction of the wind was 48 degrees northeast, and on the Beaufort scale it was a 6. So the wind constantly moved branches, and if you tried to open a car door, it blew open. The max temperature for the left thermometer was 42.7 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was 40.4 degrees Fahrenheit. The max temperature for the right thermometer was 43 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was 40.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Each day the NWS data report that was closest to when I did my observations was at 5:53 p.m. each day. The current temperatures from the NWS data for January 26th was 43 degrees Fahrenheit. My temperatures were 2 to 3 degrees off from this, and I think if I'm right and the NWS site for Kodiak is at the airport, then it is in a more exposed area and it's closer to the ocean, so it has more light, and so the higher temperatures make sense. January 27th, the current temperatures were 41.8 degrees Fahrenheit for the left thermometer and 42.3 degrees Fahrenheit for the right. The cloud coverage for that day was 75%, and this was the day that we had the most diversity in clouds. We had cirrostratus, altostratus, nimbostratus, and scud and fog. There was no precipitation other than the fog that we had. The direction of the wind was 206 degrees south-southeast. On the Beaufort scale, it was a constant 4 with 5 level gusts. The tree branches were moving constantly, and trees would sway when the gusts came. The max temperature for the left thermometer was 42.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min for the left was 40.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The right thermometer, the max was 43.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was 41 degrees Fahrenheit. The current temperature for the NWS was 42 degrees Fahrenheit. In comparison to my data for that day, it was pretty close to the same, but my temperatures were a tad bit lower. For January 28th, the current temperatures were 41.2 degrees Fahrenheit for the left thermometer and 41.6 degrees Fahrenheit for the right thermometer. The cloud coverage was at 100%, and the clouds were nimbostratus and fog. And the precipitation for the day was rain and the fog that we had. The wind direction was 46 degrees north-northeast, and on the Beaufort scale it was a 5 with some gust. So small trees were still swaying and debris was still floating around. The max temperature for the left thermometer was 44.1 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was 39.5 degrees Fahrenheit. The right thermometer's max was 43.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was 39.1 degrees Fahrenheit. The current temperature for NWS at 5:53 p.m. was 42 degrees Fahrenheit. My temperature readings were pretty close to that, but it was still lower than the NWS website still. January 29th, the current temperatures were 39.5 degrees Fahrenheit for the left and 39.9 degrees Fahrenheit for the right. The cloud coverage was 75%, and they were stratocumulus and altostratus clouds, and there was no precipitation that day. The wind direction was 248 degrees west, and the Beaufort reading was at about a 2. I could see the smoke from my neighbor's smokestack drifting slightly, and you could feel the breeze on your face. The maximum temperatures for the day of the left thermometer were 44.1 degrees Fahrenheit for the max, and 37.7 degrees Fahrenheit for the min. The right thermometer max was 43.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was 38.1 degrees Fahrenheit. January 29th was the day that we had the highest fluctuation in the maximum temperatures. The NWS data had a current temperature reading of 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so again my temperatures were a tad bit lower than that. On January 30th, the current temperatures were 40.2 degrees Fahrenheit for the left thermometer and 40.9 degrees Fahrenheit for the right. Cloud coverage was at 100%, and it had nimbostratus clouds with no precipitation. The wind direction was at 166 degrees south-southeast, and it was a 1 on the Beaufort scale, which was the lowest that we had all week. It was a light air, so you could barely feel it on your face. The left thermometer max was at 40.2 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was at 36.9 degrees Fahrenheit. The right thermometer max was at 40.9 degrees Fahrenheit, and the min was at 36.8 degrees Fahrenheit. The NWS data temperature reading was at 5:53 p.m., which was at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. This time my current temperature readings were higher by just a few decimal points. So here's the temperature graph for the week for my data and the NWS data. And as you can see, my average temperatures and my overall graph follows the same shape as the temperature graph, except for right here in the beginning where my temperatures were a tad bit lower, and then also right here where the highest fluctuation in temperatures happened on the 29th. Here's the barometric pressure plot for the week. My data readings at the time of my observation are as follows. On January 26th, the barometric pressure was at 1,003 millibars. The 27th was at 1,000 millibars. The 28th was at 1,006 millibars. The 29th was at 1,011 millibars. And the 30th barometric pressure was at 1,016 millibars. And as you can see, my graph relatively is the same shape as the NWS graph, but it's not exactly the same. The biggest difference I saw between my graph and the NWS graph was in the minimum pressures, where my minimum pressure was at 1,000 millibars. The NWS minimum pressure right here was at approximately 992 millibars. And the differences between my graph and the NWS graph, I think, is due to the fact that I'm downtown Kodiak and I'm near a base of a mountain, where if I'm correct and the NWS site for Kodiak is at the airport, their site is closer to the ocean and it is also in a flatter area. So the next few pictures are the TV weather charts from January 28th through January 31st. This is the weather chart for Tuesday, January 28th, and as you can see, this low pressure is being pushed this way towards Kodiak, as the high pressure is pushing towards the west. And you can see that the low pressure is bringing in the rain, as indicated here by these two dots, as well as the fog for that day, and that was at the beginning of the week. This is the TV weather chart from January 29th, and as you can see, we were on a border of a high pressure and a low pressure. The low pressure moving towards the east and the high pressure moving towards the west. And the high pressure was pushing strongly towards the west, strong enough to give us the stratocumulus and the altocumulus clouds, and no precipitation for that day. That was the nicest day of the week for us. And as you can see, the west side of Kodiak still has rain and cloud coverage, and the city of Kodiak is located right here pretty much on the east side, and that's why that was the best day for weather for us. This is the January 29th visible satellite map, and as you can see, the clouds right here are a bit lighter, more of a gray color in comparison to these brighter clouds, and that's due to these clouds not being as dense, which showed to be true through my weather observations, where we had stratocumulus and altocumulus clouds, and these are not the densest clouds. Here is the infrared satellite map for January 29th, and as you can see, it also follows with the same observations that I had, where the temperatures were we had a high pressure and the temperatures were a bit lower for that day. The barometric pressure that day was at 1011 millibars, and the minimum temperatures for that day were 37.7 degrees Fahrenheit on the left thermometer and 38.1 degrees Fahrenheit for the right. These were the lowest days, or the lowest temperatures for the week up to that day. The 30th was even colder for us. This is the water vapor map for the 29th, and as you can see, the east side of Kodiak again is in a darker spot, which indicates that we didn't have any precipitation, or not much there, which was pretty true according to my weather observations, because on the 29th we had no precipitation that day. This is the TV weather chart for Thursday, January 30th, and on the 30th, the same low pressure that was pushing the high pressure back out is moving closer to Kodiak right here. And as you can see, we did have clouds that day due to these gray spots right along here, but we had no precipitation that day. Here's Friday, January 31st TV weather chart, and the low is directly over Kodiak, as you can see, and these indicate fog and rain, as well as heavy cloud coverage, again pushing out the high pressure. All of these images reflect my weather observations pretty well, and I think my data and the NWS data readings were pretty close to each other, and overall I think my data was pretty on the spot with what the weather was actually doing. Over the course of the week, we had a low pressure come in, bring rain and fog and heavy winds. Then the high pressure pushed out the low pressure just enough for us to have one nice day, and then the low pressure returned and brought more rain and fog. At this point, we haven't had any snow yet. This week, as of February 7th, we had some snow earlier this week, but still, this weather is pretty unusual for Kodiak's winter, and it makes me a bit wary about what the weather has to bring us here this upcoming spring. So that is a closer look at my weather observations for January 26th through January 30th. Thanks for watching.